Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be tackling a question that I'm sure every single person listening has thought about. At some point,
Yeah.
does God exist?
Well, it's definitely a question that has fascinated thinkers and, theologians and philosophers for centuries.
Oh, absolutely.
And it still sparks a ton of debate and intrigue today.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? I was talking to a friend about this episode,
Okay.
and they were like, oh, it's such a big question. Like, how are you going to cover that in a single episode? And I was like,
Right.
well, we're not doing a single
I've
episode.
got a lot to say.
Yeah, exactly. We're diving deep, right? That's
Hmm.
the name of the show. And we're going to be looking at this academic essay called God, Myth, or Reality,
Okay.
which I think does such a good job of looking at it from both sides.
Right.
The people who believe in God and the people who don't.
Yeah. Presents both sides of the argument.
Yeah, and it also gets into some really cool facts about world religions and
Mm.
there's even this survey of young people's beliefs that just blew my mind.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool. I think it's going to be a great deep dive.
Yeah. I'm excited to break it down.
Okay, before we can even unpack the arguments for and against God,
Mhm.
we got to figure out what we even mean by God.
Oh, for sure. Because you're right. It is a surprisingly tricky concept.
Hmm.
It changes across cultures, religions, all that.
Right, right.
Some people see God as this personal being, like the creator who's involved in the world.
Hmm.
Others, it's more of this impersonal force, like a cosmic energy that's in everything.
Yeah, it's is it an old man with a beard?
Right.
Or is it just this force?
Exactly.
It's so interesting to think about how those different ideas of God shape, how people believe, how they act.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But for our deep dive here, I think it makes sense to just focus on a more, I don't know, general definition.
Sure.
The one that most religions seem to agree on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you mean the idea that God is like the creator,
Yeah.
the one in control of the universe.
Exactly. And whether you think it's a personal God or just some kind of force, this idea that there's something bigger than us, something that made everything, that's key to a lot of faiths.
I mean, it makes sense.
Right.
I mean, it really impacts how we understand ourselves, like
Mhm.
where we fit in, the whole cosmos.
Totally. And speaking of understanding, there was this one thing in the essay that really got me thinking.
Okay.
It was talking about how, humans just need to believe in something bigger than themselves,
Right.
whether it's God or nature or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
We seem like we're, I don't know, wired to search for meaning.
Yeah.
Something beyond just our everyday lives.
Absolutely. Our belief systems give us that framework
Right.
for understanding the world, our purpose, and our morals, what's right and wrong.
Totally.
Yeah,
And those beliefs, even if we don't realize it, they have a huge impact on what we do.
for sure.
The essay argues that our beliefs shape everything.
Oh, yeah. I mean, think about it.
Everything.
From our daily routine to the biggest decisions in life, it's all connected.
Wow, that's a lot of responsibility on our beliefs.
If you think about it, if you believe in an afterlife, that belief will shape your actions in this life.
Oh, totally.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Even if you don't follow any specific religion,
Yeah.
you probably still have core values,
Right.
beliefs that guide you.
Absolutely. I've not really thought about it like that.
It's we're all shaped by what we believe, whether we know it or not.
That's really interesting. Okay, so before we go full-on philosophy,
Okay.
I think it'll help to get a bigger picture of world religion.
Yeah, like a panorama
Exactly.
to see all the ways humans have thought about God over time.
Exactly. And this essay lays out these three main types of belief: polytheism, pantheism, and monotheism.
Each one with its own unique set of beliefs and practices. All right, so starting with polytheism, the belief in lots of gods.
Many gods.
The essay traces it back to Hinduism.
Around 2500 BC.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was super common in ancient cultures, like the Greeks and Romans.
Well, with their pantheons of gods and goddesses.
Exactly. Each god representing something different about nature or human experiences.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And they tried to keep those gods happy with all those rituals and sacrifices, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's wild to think how those beliefs shape their lives.
Oh, absolutely.
Their whole culture.
It's amazing to look back on.
It is. It is. Okay, so then there's pantheism.
Where God is in everything and everything is God.
Okay, so not separate gods, but more the divine is all around us,
Exactly.
in nature and stuff.
Yeah, it was huge in ancient cultures who were close to nature, you know?
Right.
And you can still see its influence today.
Yeah, that's true. And finally, there's monotheism. That's the belief in one God, which is the basis of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
huge religions, massive impact on Western civilization.
Yeah, for sure. Art, literature, laws, politics, like everything.
And still the most practiced religions in the world.
Definitely. But, the essay does point out that there are more and more people who aren't religious these days.
Yeah, like a secular trend.
Exactly. In fact, get this. The essay says that the non-religious are now like the third largest philosophical group worldwide.
Wow, seriously?
Yeah, I know, right? It really surprised me.
That's a huge shift in how people believe.
Totally. Okay, so before we get into the arguments about whether God exists or not, let's talk about like the pros and cons of religion. Because it's not all good or bad, right?
Well, religion can definitely provide comfort,
Yeah.
a sense of community, and a moral compass.
Yeah, I can see that.
It inspires people to do good. And let's not forget, some of the most beautiful art and music comes from religious traditions.
Oh, absolutely. But the essay doesn't shy away from the bad stuff either.
You mean like the wars and violence?
Yeah, all the horrible things done in the name of religion.
Yeah, it's a dark side for sure.
And the essay even quotes this physicist, Steven Weinberg.
Okay.
He said, "For good people to do evil, that takes religion."
Wow. That's heavy.
Right? It's a scary thought.
It really makes you think.
It does. Like, what if there had never been religious wars?
Right.
What if everyone just got along? Would the world be totally different?
It's impossible to know, but it's interesting to consider.
It really is. Okay, so before we go any further,
Okay.
I think we need to talk about atheism.
A big one.
Yeah, because there are a lot of misconceptions out there.
Oh, tons.
So we should probably clear those up.
Definitely. The essay makes it very clear. Atheism isn't about hating God
Right.
or like being against morality. It's
Right.
simply not believing in any gods.
So it's not a belief system, but more like the lack of a specific belief.
Exactly. And it doesn't mean you have no purpose.
Yeah.
Many atheists find meaning in human connection,
Yeah.
ethics, and knowledge.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I imagine it's got to be tough, like living in a world where so many people are religious.
Oh, yeah, especially if you grew up in a religious family.
Totally.
The essay talks about how existing as an atheist, especially where religion is strong, comes with challenges.
It makes sense. So why do people become atheists? Like, what are the reasons?
Well, the essay explores a few common ones.
Okay.
Sometimes people's beliefs just don't line up with what they learn about the world,
Oh,
maybe because of science or their own experiences.
that makes sense.
And some have had bad experiences with organized religion.
Yeah, like with churches or religious leaders.
Exactly. It makes them question the whole thing.
I can see that. And then there's the internet.
The internet changes everything.
Right. It lets atheists connect,
Share ideas.
see different views.
Absolutely.
It's crazy how much the internet has changed things.
For sure. And speaking of different views, the essay mentioned this survey of young people.
Oh, yeah. That one was so interesting.
What stood out to you?
Well, I couldn't believe that over 80% said they believe in God,
Wow.
but only 45% knew the 10 Commandments.
Huh.
Like, how does that even work?
Seems like a disconnect, right?
Totally. And only 25% go to any kind of religious service.
That's wild.
Yeah, so maybe traditional religion is fading.
Even for believers.
Exactly. It's fascinating to see how beliefs are changing,
It really is.
especially for young people.
Okay. Are you ready to get into the actual arguments for and against God's existence?
Let's dive in. Okay, so let's kick things off with the theist perspective.
Okay.
The essay outlines a bunch of arguments for God's existence, and a lot of them focus on the idea that the universe itself kind of points to a creator.
Yeah, like just how vast it is, how complex.
Exactly.
Like billions of stars, galaxies. It's mind-blowing.
Right. It's hard to imagine it all just happening randomly.
Totally.
Makes you think there must be some kind of grand plan.
Yeah, like a divine architect or something.
Yeah, that's the teleological argument.
Okay.
It's been debated for centuries. It's like if you found a watch in the forest,
Right.
you wouldn't think it just appeared there.
Exactly. You'd assume someone made it.
Right, a watchmaker.
Yeah.
So apply that to the universe.
Okay. Yeah.
Then you have the cosmological argument.
Okay.
That one's all about cause and effect.
Cause and effect.
Everything has a cause, right?
Yeah.
So the universe must have a cause too.
Okay.
And that ultimate cause for theists is God.
So it's like everything needs a starting point.
Yeah, like dominoes.
Yeah.
Each one knocks over the next, but something had to start the chain.
So God is the first domino.
Exactly, the uncaused cause.
Wow. That's like really deep.
Right. But it's not just about logic and reasoning.
No.
Faith is also a big part of it.
Yeah, it's not always about proving it scientifically.
Right.
It's about that personal experience.
The essay talks about that.
That feeling of connection to something bigger.
That could be super powerful for people.
Totally. But of course, the essay doesn't just present one side.
It looks at why some people reject the idea of God, too.
Yeah, and those arguments often focus on the lack of hard evidence,
Okay.
inconsistencies in religious teachings,
Hmm.
and then there's the problem of evil.
Oh, yeah, that one's tough.
Like, if God is all-powerful and good,
Mm-hmm.
why is there so much suffering?
Right. It's a hard question to wrap your head around.
It's been a struggle for thinkers for a long time.
I can imagine.
Some say suffering is necessary for growth.
Okay.
Others say God gives us free will, even if it leads to bad stuff.
But for atheists, that's evidence against God.
Yeah, if he was truly all-powerful and good.
Right. He wouldn't let bad things happen.
That's one of the big clashes between theism and atheism.
Totally. And then the essay talks about all the different religions throughout history,
Oh, yeah, so many different beliefs.
each with its own rules and interpretation.
Exactly.
And atheists say that's proof against any one religion being true.
Like, if there's one true God,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't there be a clearer message?
Yeah, one that everyone agrees on.
Not all these different versions.
You're right, and all the conflict that comes with it.
It's a strong point.
And then there's the reliance on faith.
Faith.
It's like you have to accept things without proof.
Right.
And atheists criticize that.
They say it's not a reliable way to find truth.
Okay. I see how these arguments all tie together.
Yeah, they build on each other.
But going back to that survey for a second,
Yeah.
I'm still hung up on how so many believed in God,
Over 80%.
but they didn't know much about religion.
Right.
Makes you wonder what believing really means these days.
It's a good question.
Maybe it's more of a cultural thing
Maybe.
or a feeling, not a strict set of beliefs.
It's like God has become separate from organized religion.
Yeah, maybe it's the internet. Maybe it's society changing.
It's like beliefs are getting more fluid, more personal.
It's a fascinating trend.
Yeah.
And then there's the rise of atheism.
Especially among young people.
The essay mentioned that almost everyone in the survey knew what atheism was.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's like non-belief is becoming more mainstream, more accepted. And the internet probably plays a part in that.
Definitely. It makes it easier for atheists to connect.
Share their views, find information.
Absolutely.
And as science explains more and more things.
That used to be attributed to God.
Right. I think we'll see more people questioning traditional beliefs.
It's an evolution of thought.
It's going to be interesting to see where it goes.
It is. It is. Oh, and before we move on, I wanted to touch on this one point from the essay
Okay.
about how theists and atheists actually have some common ground.
Really?
Yeah. They both agree that there's something infinite and uncaused.
So whether it's God or the universe itself,
Exactly.
they both agree there's something fundamental that just exists.
Doesn't need a creator.
That's pretty wild.
Right. Even with their differences.
They agree on that.
Like a shared mystery at the heart of it all.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here.
But yeah.
Arguments for and against God, faith, atheism, even some common ground.
It's been quite a journey. It has. It has. But there's one more thing we should talk about.
Okay.
What if we found absolute proof, one way or the other?
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. The essay touches on it briefly.
But it's worth digging deeper. Like, imagine what if we woke up tomorrow and there was, like, no doubt God exists.
It would completely change everything.
Right. Science, philosophy, religion, like, everything would be different.
The essay says it wouldn't necessarily prove any one religion right, though.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Like, okay, there's a God, but which one?
Right. And whose religion got it right all along?
It would raise so many new questions. Maybe even more division and arguments.
Look, like, finding proof of God wouldn't actually bring people together.
It could actually do the opposite.
Wow.
Everyone's scrambling to fit this new knowledge into their beliefs.
That's mind-blowing.
Right.
Okay, so what about the other side? What if we found proof that God doesn't exist?
That would be huge, too.
Ah.
We'd have to rethink everything about the universe and ourselves.
People freak out.
It's hard to say.
Like, would it lead to despair? Or would it be, like, empowering?
The essay says a world without God can still have meaning.
Okay.
Humans are good at finding meaning, even when things are uncertain.
That's true, I guess. Maybe we'd focus on nature or human connection.
It's a personal journey, finding that meaning.
Yeah, you know, going through all this, it makes you think about how this question affects you personally.
Absolutely. Whether you believe or not, it shapes how you see the world.
Your values, how you live your life.
It touches on some deep stuff, hopes and fears,
Yeah, for believers, faith gives comfort,
guidance, purpose,
but there's also doubt.
trying to make sense of it all.
And then there's the problem of evil that's hard to reconcile.
And for those who don't believe, it's about finding meaning on your own terms
Dealing with societal pressure,
and facing death without the promise of an afterlife.
it's a lot to think about. But there's no one right answer, is there?
It's a personal journey.
Everyone has to find their own path.
Exactly. The essay doesn't give easy answers, but it encourages us to think about these things honestly.
With respect for other views.
Absolutely.
That's what I love about this deep dive. It's not about being right or wrong,
It's about exploring
challenging ourselves.
and understanding this debate better.
It's given me a lot to think about.
Me too. And hopefully it's done the same for our listeners,
Yeah, to keep thinking about these questions even after the episode's over.
because the search for truth and meaning never really ends.
It's a journey we're all on together, no matter what we believe.
That's a great way to put it.
So keep asking those big questions
Keep challenging what you think you know.
and keep searching for what feels right to you.
And maybe along the way, we'll all understand ourselves and the universe a little bit better.
Well said. I think that's a perfect place to wrap things up. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the question of God. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.